All right, we are live. RTD Live Talk late night live stream. And so it's been a minute since I've done a live stream in the evening. So I figured I would log in and see who's available to go back and forth, share a couple thoughts about a little bit of propaganda, mainstream media propaganda in regards to this whole health situation we're currently facing. So I want to just see who is available, make sure I'm streaming live right now, and share some video rather, as well as some articles. So let me, having some difficulty here. Let me log in, make sure everything is good on my end. But I have a couple of articles I want to share, and they have to do with this whole corona scare. And so I'll give it a minute before I begin going into this live stream, make sure we got a couple people tuning in. And once everything opens up on my end, I can make sure I'm streaming. So is that being the case, for those that might be watching, let me know in the chat if everything is flowing smoothly. Looks like there might be some late notifications. So we do have somebody available. So Mr. Mike, one man army, looks like. Appreciate you for tuning in, my friend. And so came across a couple articles earlier that I wanted to touch on, and they have to do with what looks like a mainstream push at this current moment to put out the narrative that cash is dirty and it is the carrier of this current human malware, as I titled it yesterday. And so I'll take a minute to not acknowledge a couple people before I move further. And so we got Carl, we got Scott, we got Cedric, Spirit King. How you guys doing? And so it won't be on long this evening, but just wanted to check in and share some thoughts as well as some articles. And I want to make sure I put myself up, but for whatever reason, I can't see myself, so I'm not sure if everything is going smooth. What's up, Mike? How you doing, Excalibur? You got Catherine says they are trying to ban cash here in Australia. Catherine, yes, I've been paying attention to that legislation of putting a cap on how much cash you're able to actually use without having to give some verification and things of that nature. So I think that's very telling of where the financial establishment wants all of this to go. And of course, we won't be hearing about anything like that in the US directly, because it'd be hard to put a cash ban outright on the current reserve currency without causing a lot of alarms to go off. And so why not, or what better way to push that narrative other than to use other countries as well as currencies? And it looks like there are a lot of G7 style nations. So we got Australia, we have, a lot of the Scandinavian countries don't really need to ban cash because most people don't even want cash. So we're going to talk about that. And so John, the 10th man, says new to the channel. Appreciate you for tuning in from San Antonio, my friend. And so, all right. So what really spurred this desire to do a live stream tonight was, I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to come across a video that went viral, I think about 2 years ago. And I'm actually going to put it on the screen. And this will lead into why I believe that this is a scripted push to just sow the seeds into people's, just basically it's a push by the mainstream to sow seeds into people's thought process so that they'll be in tune with what is going on. So it will not be nothing new, rather. And so I want to play a video. Hopefully you guys can hear it. But I actually saw this video. It says even up to 2 years in jail here in Australia. So yes, paper notes. Yes, credit cards still working. And so I heard about when it comes to using your credit cards with bullion and coin shops or whatnot, I heard that there are some issues of people not actually being able to use their cards inside those stores. So I'm not sure if that's a nationwide thing or just in a local area. But everything that's being done in Australia will eventually come here. And because of the reserve status of the dollar, it'll be the last to experience everything. So viewers here in this country get a chance to see what life is like outside, especially in nations where there is a direct attack on the last line of privacy, financial privacy a person can have in regards to having tangible cash or access to cash. Of course, metals or whatnot is a preservation of wealth overall, but not being able to use cash on a daily basis or have it in your own possession without it being looked at as a crime or criminal activity or funding terrorism and all the things that they've spun out over the last couple of years plays right into the narrative of moving cash. But here in the US. This is the propaganda tool that we're going to be hearing more of. And I'm going to play this video first to kind of set the stage as to what I'm referring to. And so the reason why I realized that this is a mainstream push, it has to do with this video right here. And so is about 2 years ago. Let me see. I'm not sure how old this video is. So this video here is from 2018. And so it went viral because it's from Sinclair's broadcasting channel. And so apparently there's, I'm assuming Sinclair's, from what I've read or saw so far, they are the script writers, or they have something to do with script writing for all the mainstream news channels in the US. And so when this video came out a couple years ago, it really caught me by surprise, because I always knew that we were being led to believe the same thing at the same time. But actually watching this video here and hearing their push on how they are the true main news source and we should listen to them. And my philosophy has always been, if you're listening to someone as a credible source and they're reading off a teleprompter, somebody on the other end had to write that script. And so this plays into the whole propaganda push of just, the dirty money propaganda. So I'm going to actually play this, and hopefully let me know in the chat if you guys can hear this. And it might ring a bell for some, but some people, I'm assuming a lot of people may not have ever saw this or heard of this. But let me go back a little bit. I'm going to start right here.
San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities, the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias.
All right, so enough of that. So if you guys got a chance to hear that, when I saw that video a couple years ago or 2 years ago, whatever, I posted it on my social media accounts like, wow, this is just very telling of how it basically proves that during the whole campaign trail of last campaign and every campaign, the mainstream news was purchased. It was bought out way old back in the decades and decades ago. All a part of, when the Federal Reserve came into being, I heard about how the wealthiest people bought up all the true mainstream news sources. So there hasn't really been any true journalism since then, and everything else has been alternative media spun. And so that's where people tend to get their opinionated viewpoints from alternative media. So when I saw this, I'm thinking wow, this is right on time, because the very next thing I saw, and this was within the last couple of hours ago, was that here in Detroit, Fox 2 News has put out something, and I'm thinking here in my home city, I've never really heard, it's not common that Fox 2 Detroit News actually talks about anything of relevance or of importance to, in the bigger scheme of things. And so the first thing came to mind was, wow, I would imagine. And so I would advise you guys, if you're able, if you're watching from the United States of America, if you probably go to your local news station's website, I would wonder, and I probably imagine that you might also see the same article here talking about contaminated cash may spread the human malware. And so this all comes back to the World Health Organization, which I guess is being positioned as a leading expert authority on this current situation we're having now. But I just thought this is something worth talking about, because once again, as someone mentioned, we have the case in Australia where they're putting legislation on cash, and outside of the fact that the health issues there as well, but yet this legislation has been in play for several months, if not a year or two now. So removing cash was of importance years ago, and it plays into the cashless society push in general. But then now it's this whole cashless society can be pushed up. It can be sped up now because we have a health scare. And I think with my Fox 2 Detroit News posting this on top of a couple other articles I have, they're now sowing seeds into the public's mind of perhaps you need to rethink the use of cash because it can carry and spread. And my one of my biggest thoughts about this was, what's the leading item we all possess that has the most germs on it? And it happens to be our cell phone. And so, of course, cash changed hands from multiple people, whatever. But last time I checked, this device here was the dirtiest item that we touched during the day. And so, of course, you won't hear in the mainstream media encouraging people not to use their phone as much or to wipe down their phone. But yet they will talk about cash. And it's not by coincidence at all. And I thought I would share this because I think somebody commented on this earlier, and I wanted to touch on this and find out, what do you guys think? And also, I'm curious to find out more about the Australia situation because I think that, as I mentioned before, now that all central banks are cutting or will be cutting, then there's not much lower you can take interest rates before it puts somewhat of a premium and a desire for people to go to cash. And so as the World Health Organization is telling people, you might want to rethink the use of cash because of the health concerns, we also have central banks now that will be looking to find ways to remove cash. And so I got a couple other thoughts I wanted to roll out there about where this is ultimately heading. And of course, every country right now is experiencing some type of cashless push or whatever. It's all an experiment that will lead us to the last country, which will be the US, of course. But I think it's something that should be on your radar because none of this is by accident. This is all intentionally designed and placed in this time frame at the beginning of 2020, at the beginning of a new decade. And so I watched a very interesting video earlier about if you run the numbers, if you just do the math calculations, we are 90 years or so, give or take, since we had the last financial monetary blackout, referring to the Great Depression time frame. And so every 80 to 90 years or so, according to the information I read earlier, the debt, just the numbers and the math of things no longer being sustainable at that current level runs out. And then there has to be some type of correction. There has to be some type of day of reckoning. And so touch on it even further. The last day of reckoning that I'm referring to happened to be the removal of gold out of the hands of the public. And that happened to be in 1933 with the executive order. So as the numbers and all the math just no longer worked for that time frame, the Dow Jones crashed, the Great Depression, all that stuff happened. We know how bad that was. But then the shift in the monetary paradigm at that time was on gold. And so gold was then removed from the public's hands. And so that was the end of that shift. What happened at the end of that shift was gold was removed. Now here we are now at the end of another cycle or the end of another paradigm. And what needs to be removed? Cash. And so right now, it's interesting to watch all this unfold. And if you pay attention and you look close enough and you second guess everything you're being told or taught, it only plays in well to why there's a push for cryptocurrency adoption. Because now the cash is no longer something that the financial establishment wants us to use. What is the next best option? It happens to be the digital world that we're already in now, but it's going to be solely digital. And so I'm going to pull up another article here and actually go to the source itself. And this is, let me go here, pull up this article here. So here we have, this is from thehill.com. And so it says World Health Organization warns of surfaces that may carry the health situation. So this is the information that was given out February 28th in Geneva. And here we have a Tedros, attends a daily press briefing on the I can't say the name these days because if I say the name, what happens. But it says it gives a list of things that are a concern to them. And so they're the World Health Organization. So clearly they're a credible source that actually knows what's best for the American people or the world, right? Yeah, you would like to think so. So just, don't be fooled by the name World Health Organization. Like that's the all to be all. So I would question like this guy here. You know, if he's a leading speaker, I'm not sure of his role. He's the director general. And so I would question, does he have a medical background? I don't know. And I don't see Dr. Tedros. So he might just be, you know, went to school to be a teacher and happened to now get that position. So you know how they be shifting positions in that type of realm. So such as like Christine Lagarde, who's the chairwoman of the ECB, and she has a law degree, don't know nothing or has no true credible source or background in finance or anything of that nature, but she's the head of the second leading currency on the planet. So once again, they be shuffling decks. Anyway, so just real quickly, it says, however, along with the overall likelihood of contracting the health scare, it says from a contaminated surface, the contaminated surface remains low for public benefit. However, the World Health Organization outlines several everyday items that pose a high risk of transmission, including banknotes, leading one, door handles, office kitchens, ATMs, guardrails, communal bathrooms, hospital services, phones, and airplane seats. And then what really caught my attention here was this tweet here that came out on February 28th. It says, your risk depends on where you live, your age, and general health. And so that statement, you know, that was a week ago. But that statement right there lets me know that that's just a very general, generic statement, because it says your risk depends on where you live, your age, and general health. So once again, we have a current malware situation that appears to not be discriminatory in nature. And so apart from to my knowledge, the youth are not heavily impacted as far as kids. Somebody let me know if I'm wrong. But just once again, this organization here to me doesn't really cut it. I'm sorry. And perhaps you might buy it, but I don't buy it. And so before I start, let me stop ranting and check in with the chat and see who's tuning in and who's saying what out there. And so let me see here. Let me check in with the chat. As always, if you guys have a thought or question, just hit at Rethinking a Dollar, and I'll definitely try to touch on it. And as well, I forgot. Let's see if we can get a couple phone calls. I'm curious to hear any stories that you guys might want to share. Anybody have some inside information from boots on the ground, wherever you might be located at. If you want to chime in and share your thoughts, please feel free to give me a call. And so, okay, let me actually, since I'm on here, let me actually pull up something. And so I talked about this yesterday with Mr. Half Dollar. And so I think this is very important in nature, because this plays right into, let me see if I can find, where is this at? It was something here. Does that it? Let me see. Technology retail. All right. So let me just pull this up. So this might, no, that's not it. That's not it. I want to show you guys something that I think can further help us all see exactly what the game plan is initially. Let me find this real quick. And so it has to do with the timely nature of CBDCs, which happens to be central bank digital currencies. And so is there any surprise outside of the so-called threat of competition? And so every central bank chairperson is talking about, you know, we don't want to get behind the curve in utilizing this technology. But then again, you have Federal Reserve that admitted, Jerome Powell admitted quite some time ago that they were well aware and they're well versed in the digital currency realm. They've been looking at it for quite some time, according to Mr. Jerome Powell. And so I want to just put up this little pyramid thingy that I think can give us a good idea. Let me pull this up here so you guys can see what I'm talking about for those that may not have had a chance to see the live stream. So here's a little pyramid. This is like a preemptive draw up of one of the economists for the BIS. And so the time frame or the rollout mechanism, they're talking about the consumer needs. They're trying to mimic the same principles and use cases as cash, but then put it in digital form on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, it says the CBDC design choices. And so what really tripped me out is just the architecture. It says indirect or direct claims and what operational role for the central bank. So basically when I read that, it's like, okay, how can they roll this out, but yet still have the same control and operate as if it's cash, as if everything is good? So they want, as to the left, it says cash-like with peer-to-peer functionality. But then on the right-hand side, where it's red here, they still want to still oversee and control things. And then from right on up, the most important at the bottom, all the way to the top. And the very last for you and I, as far as some central bank rolling out their currency, is the cross-border aspects, which means that they're going to be able to track, trace, and restrict your ability to send funds through their network and to who you want to send it to. So these are all things that plays in very well with this cashless push. And so as I move forward, I wanted to share my thoughts as to what could possibly be the last go round for U.S. citizens. And so outside of getting a good example as to what's going on in other countries with the push to remove cash, outright push to remove cash, and citizens in certain parts of the world welcoming the push away from cash, I think let me show you something. Something else that came up. Let me see if I can find it. Something else that I think, let me see. So here is another article here that it looks like. It says Sweden is now testing its digital version of cash, the e-krona, which is simply the electronic krona. And so it looks like this upcoming year, so from right now to next year, is going to be the test trial for what looks like Sweden's attempt to remove the last little bit of a small amount of cash out of their system and go solely digital. And of course, they're going to be using the app and all that things like that, stuff that's already fairly common and popular there. So they won't be met with any resistance in Sweden because they already don't use cash to the same way we do in the US and wherever else you're at. But what my initial thought was, now, as I mentioned, everything that happens before the U.S. makes its final decision is a test run. And so this right here lets me know that Sweden appears to be the first country that will be rolling out a Let me see. Got a good issue here. Sorry about that. So let me make this right. So somebody wants to talk. Let's see if we can get them on. All right. So do me a favor. Give me a call back and I will have the correct phone on this time. And I'll definitely get you on here. So e-krona. And so I wanted to show you guys this because once again, we're getting a chance to see examples of what is the intended goal. And the push is to take us solely digital. So I'm gonna throw out something that I haven't heard it before, and I'm assuming it's out there, but I haven't heard it with the way I'm going to say it. It has to do with once all the other nations go through their test trials, and Australia, that law, if it's passed, they're going to remove cash, and then it'll trickle down to every other country from there for them, and it could fly under the radar if this human malware of this health scare continues to escalate because people won't really be concerned with whatever you call the medium of exchange you're using. You're going to be concerned with your health first. So you will not be too disappointed if you're not able to transact with paper because it's already the seeds have been sown that is not something that you might want to carry. And so that initial seed will place fear in your heart to where you might even look at $100 bill and you're like, know what? That looks a little wrinkled. I don't want that. And you might say, no, thank you. So expect possibility within the next couple months, next year or two, people look at cash differently to where apart from just, it may or may not, more than likely, I would assume it may not. But even so, it'll be easier for people to turn over their last little bit of their last offensive right to own physical, tangible property, even though it doesn't belong to you anyway. But to use actual tangible property as a medium of exchange, this next year or so could be the last time we look at our paper currency the same. And so what does that mean for us here in the US? The e-dollar. And so I've been talking about over the last, 2 or 3 years now, me anticipating the rollout of the Fed coin. But yet I think once the Federal Reserve inflates their balance sheet to an astronomical amount in hopes of saving or propping up or whatever, keeping the same paradigm going, so the Federal Reserve will pump as much liquidity into the system. And it's all basically to purchase and to acquire as much tangible goods as they possibly can. And so we all believe, maybe we don't all know, but I'd imagine didn't work. Sorry, man. Let me see here. I want to make sure. So let me see. So it should work if you're trying to give me a call. I apologize. Let me close the app and then open it back up and see if it works better. But get back to my point. Open it up, close it, and open up again. See what happens. Okay. So the e-dollar. So the Federal Reserve right now, the Federal Reserve in the next year, especially depending on how this health situation rolls out, the Federal Reserve will shoot themselves in the foot because in their attempts to save the system, the only thing they will do is to create more digital units. And those digital units itself will cause their implosion. Because who's going to want those things, if they don't buy much? But we'll get to that. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike. It's Matt from Nashville.
Matt from Nashville. How you doing, my friend? Give me something good.
Hey, man. Sorry, and I'm on my phone, so whenever I call you, I miss what you're talking about.
Okay.
So I'm sorry if you've actually already told us your opinion. But do you see a need to stock physical cash? I know I did get on there real quick to tell you that the phone call wasn't going through, and I heard you say that we're going to start looking at it differently, and people might not want it because it's sprinkled and whatnot. But
yeah. I
didn't catch if you said anything about whether or not you see it as appropriate, especially during this time of y'all were talking about stocking up and getting just prepping.
Yeah.
Do you think cash is something that I should have?
Yes. Okay. So great question. And my personal opinion is that, yes, you will definitely need and want some cash because cash will be very useful and will come in handy, I believe, the moment that we have a bank run, which, is just in my uneducated opinion, as far as being an economist, will be a lot sooner than we ever thought. Because if this repo market situation continues the way that it looks like it might, there will be a situation where there's going to be so much debt defaults and so much mistrust of the system that people, once the stock market begins to fluctuate again, they're going to say, okay, if my portfolios are not doing well, I wonder how dependable and reliable will it be for me to actually get cash out of the bank? And there's going to be more people going to the bank, if not already, to try to get little goods and services and whatnot now. And of course, there's not enough cash to meet demand at the end of the day. So I can anticipate people trying to get ahead of the curve and going to the banks directly. So say next month or two, if this situation escalates even more on the health side, expect more people to want to use physical cash as a way of keeping some in their possession as a savings, because once again, you're not getting money you're not getting anything earned on your accounts anyway. So what's the real nature of having it there? It's more risk on you for keeping it there. So I can see more people deciding to withdraw, and then there being some situations where, some bank runs, and then once again, they come up with something like, we're going to put limits and restrictions on cash because of the concerns of it being dirty, and we don't want you to be infected, so we're not going to issue new notes and whatever type of excuse. But yes, cash will serve a purpose because people who are not paying attention to this health scare will still recognize green stuff as something of value to them, even if it may not purchase as much down the line.
Okay. So like during the panic phase, cash would be good.
I believe so.
I think we've talked before, and I remember, I think it was you, and you were talking about how this next one will be a hyperinflation, like the next crisis. the credit crisis will be a hyperinflation, and it'll be a little bit different than the Depression. It won't be necessarily them saying, "Hey, we don't have any cash for you," but it'll be more so like, "Yeah, we have your cash, but it's not really worth anything."
Yeah, exactly.
So you think just for the panic, cash is good, but in the long haul, better to be, obviously, I know you always say get your weight up, but better to be at different physical things, land,
right.
things like that.
Yes, that's my opinion. Yeah, that's my opinion. Because think about this: at the end of the day, the Federal Reserve note will be your biggest liability. Because as we're witnessing, there's no limit to what the Federal Reserve will not do, or there's no limit to what they're willing to do to keep this thing going. Which means their balance sheet, which is what they create in excess reserves in digital form, will continue to increase. It has to. And so it's one of those things where as much as they're going to create and bring into existence out of nowhere, we're going to still be the ones holding on to the tangible things as well as the electronic digits in our accounts. And they're creating more competition for what we're holding. And so supply and demand, basically simple, they're going to increase the supply until they can't not do it no more, but the demand will not be there. So that leads to just mistrust, broken confidence, and people wanting to get rid of things that is not of extreme value because it's no longer rare. It'll be so plentiful. I don't see it being like Venezuela, but I think it'll be very problematic, and it'll show up in prices. Because right now there's going to be a shortage of goods, especially because of this health situation. If logistics stuff continues to break down, so we're gonna see some inflation pretty soon.
What about when it comes to maybe some other things like for bartering? Have you thought about these might be some good things that I might be able to barter pretty good with, whether it be cigarettes or gas or you name it. I remember I was listening to Mike Maloney. He has something on his page from what's that? It's some city. It's like Capaluca or Capito or some like I don't know if it's I think it's some like anarchist convention in Capaluca or something. I don't know exactly where it was, but they were going through some type of crisis, economic crisis, and the guy was talking about how like he traded cigarettes for a car or something like that, and it was like, that's wild. That's wild. But I didn't know if you had anything where you're like, yeah, I need to get some of these, so this will probably be pretty good with panic season.
To be honest with you, in my personal opinion, I think anything that is of use to somebody else can be used to barter. So one man's trash is another man's treasure, or whatever that is. So you look around you right now, there's something that you don't value much because it's just it's not of much value to you, but to somebody else, they might need that. So anything tangible that it has use can be used as barter. Now it's just a matter of, what can you get for on the other end? Like a can of beans in a worst case scenario could be enough to get you whatever you want to somebody that's starving. And so it's more so like, what do you need and what do you have that's not useful to you now that you'll be willing to give up for what you do need. So, I like to have like small 1 gram silver, like 1 gram silver, costs like maybe $1, but yet that 1 gram, it is silver. It's so small. It's the smallest of the smallest. And if silver prices go up, depending on who you're trying to get something from, they might know the value of it. And you can probably use it the same way that we would use small bills if bills became a problem. So I think anything of true value that can be used by somebody else somebody will be willing to accept.
Yeah, that's good. I've tried to keep a mix with the different weight.
Yeah.
As well in the metals. So that's good. All right, man. Well, I won't hog all your time, but I appreciate your input, man. It's always valuable to me.
Thank you, my friend.
I love it when the notifications come up on my phone that say, "Hey, watch this live."
Yeah, I appreciate
on all your different streams. So I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks for calling in.
All right, see you guys. Bye.
All right, man. I appreciate that call. Great questions there. And so, this is all my opinion, but yet we're witnessing what the Federal Reserve intends to do. They cut 50 basis points out the blue in response to this. And now central banks this week, in my opinion, they are the buyers of stocks. Why else would the stock market go up 1,000 points a day? I sure know I didn't buy no stocks, but maybe you guys did. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello?
And now central banks this week
Hear myself. Hello, caller. Anybody there? Going once, going twice. All right. Appreciate you calling. If you're trying to get on the air, make sure you mute that computer or TV, whatever you're watching from. Anyway, so the e-dollar is something I want to touch on. So I'm going to take this call, and then I want to touch on the e-dollar, share some thoughts about that. Yep. Hey there. How you doing, my friend? What's your name? Where you calling from?
Oh my God, I can't believe you answered. My name is Fahmi Muhammad. I'm calling from California.
Okay. You say Salih Muhammad?
No, Fahmi. Yeah,
Fahmi.
like family without the L-Y.
Fahmi?
F-A-M-I.
Okay. How you doing, sir? Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Oh my God. I actually didn't think you were actually taking like real people's calls. I mean, I'm not saying, you're not genuine or whatever,
Okay.
but,
Yeah, no problem.
pretty cool.
Thanks. What's on your mind? Give me some good news.
I was just thinking, with the whole coronavirus scare that everybody's scared of right now, do you think this is just going to blow over like all the previous, diseases, or do you think it's going to be more of a prolonged thing?
Great question. And so, man, it's two ways of looking at it. I'm going to give you both spins. So my wife thinks it's just something that's going to blow over in time. I'm more of the mind frame that it's something that we should take serious. And the reason I say it's something we should take serious because I think it's intentionally created to be a disruptor. And the disruption that I believe the people that created or entity that created it, what they want to disrupt happens to be the financial obligations that they have to the world. And so I think it is something that we should take serious because there are people losing their lives. Now, whether or not it's normal pneumonia, flu type things or what, I don't know. But I'm not going to sit up here and say that this is not something we shouldn't take serious. So I would say take this serious and treat it as if like it's something that could be a game changer for you personally, I believe.
That's a great point. Yeah. Actually, if you think about it, it does seem a little bit more serious than the rest of them. Like Ebola seemed, even at the time was, kind of like more or less of a nonsense thing.
Yeah, I'd agree. And on
but
top
now,
of that,
the markets are reacting to it, and there's a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
And there, like you said, there's a lot of dots too.
Right. Right. And on top of that, like right now, from a disruptor, but because China is shut down, that right there impacts everybody, period. So whether or not it's a serious healthcare or not, the economy is coming to a halt right now. So that's in and of itself is a disruptor that could cause problems. So whether it's health or financial, there's going to be some problems heading our way. That's currently right now, as you can see from the central bank's response. So the stuff has already unfolded. Now it's just a matter of how does it play out. So there's going to be some changes pretty soon, next couple of weeks. So if not already.
I have one last question.
Yes, sir.
Like let's say this whole I'm not gonna say the name because I don't want your video to get demonetized or whatever. This current health scare, like you say, or epidemic or whatever. You know? Yeah. So as let's say it is as big as they say, or even bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say a lot of people think because I personally I do believe in metals and Bitcoin and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying when it gets really bad, do you really think there's going to be a bid for metals or cryptos or anything like that? Do you think because are people just going to be like after just the basic essentials and they have no need for like any kind of monetary tool whatsoever? They're just gonna even direct barter. It's going to be a hard thing to facilitate.
Right. And a great question, man. So my personal opinion is that
there's no like police or anything, so any kind of financial transaction whatsoever would be very dangerous and
Right. Good point. So my personal opinion is that, if this thing unfolds to be a complete game changer in the way that it appears to be for most countries right now, as far as causing a complete shutdown, I could imagine most people won't really be concerned with their financial status at that moment. And so if your life is on the line, if you're threatened, your health is threatened, you're more so concerned with, just living, not necessarily worrying about how much you got in your 401k, even though that, it will be a problem, but you're going to be concerned with your day-to-day necessities for staying alive. Like just that fight or flight situation going to kick in. You want to survive. So I don't think, people will be really concerned with the amount of losses they've taken. But then again, when it comes to the rebuilding side of things and when all this blows over eventually, you're going to want something that has preserved and kept and maintained and possibly put you in a better position prior to the crises. So your health first, finances third, fourth, in my opinion. So that's just me, though.
Well, okay, thank you very much. I'm gonna go, but I wanted to say, I also watched the George Gammon, what's it called, channel.
Yeah.
And it was pretty awesome when you guys did, like the few weeks of the collab you did,
Yeah. Yeah. So George, my guy, he should be on with us this Saturday.
Columbia, I think, Columbia.
Yeah.
Columbia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a good time down there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, my friend.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, that was it. Okay. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. So we have, let me see, another call. Let's see if we can get this call. Yeah. Make sure I get this right. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello? Going once?
Hey, Mike.
Hey there. How you doing?
Hello.
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Paris, Illinois.
You say Matt?
No, it's Bob from Paris, Illinois.
Okay, Bob from Illinois. Okay, my friend. How you doing? Give me some good news tonight.
All right. I moved from Detroit area in August of last year, right?
Okay.
And I moved to this is a real small town. Now, what's the pulse there in Detroit? Are people freaking out or what?
Good. Okay, great question. So from what I've been able to gather from my daily activity of being out and about, outside of a couple stores, like, of course, your Costco, I mean, stuff that you probably hear about everywhere, like Costco's is starting to have some issues. Even myself, looking for some supplies, went to the health store, went to Home Depot for some masks, and, the things that are preparatory in nature seem to be somewhat scarce. And so I'd imagine people are taking this current situation seriously, and they are preparing themselves a little bit more than they normally would. But as far as the overall pulse of the city, I apart from me seeing this little article tonight about, contamination of cash, and I don't really get in a sense that people are really, really concerned overall just yet. Because to my knowledge, there's been nothing confirmed.
Well, the general, how people are reacting to this is very nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say as of right now, majority of the people on this, in the Midwest, to my knowledge, is not really concerned. But out west in California, where you got a couple cases, you got a nursing home. Like, my question is, how does a nursing home come up with a couple people, carrying that virus? Like, okay, that doesn't make sense. But Washington, we got 2 deaths, and so the coast looks like there might be some issues. So I'm assuming those are the cities that people flew in from China, and they are experiencing some issues out there, but it hasn't really made its way into the Midwest, to my knowledge. But there might be some people who can tell me something different.
Yeah, well, no, that okay. We read news stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see all these stories coming up. What's going on where? But we're not there. We don't know that.
Right. So that's all we have is the news sources, and I started us off by playing that viral video of all the reporters around the country saying the same exact thing off their teleprompter. So could this be could this be an event that's staged by the broadcasting networks to put out this? Anything's possible. So I would say it wasn't.
Well, we know it's coming. So the best thing I can say is trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, because that's the answer to all this.
I would agree. That is the antidote. That is the antidote to life. So I appreciate you, my friend, for calling in.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a good night. Thank you.
Yep. You be good. All right, man. That was some good stuff. Some good back and forth there. So, all right, I'm going to touch on this last little bit of thought here and then dial back. And so I'm trying to keep it to 30 minutes, but we already been 40 minutes. But I have such a good time, it's hard to say goodnight. So I won't be answering any more calls. So I'm going to cut this phone off because I won't get my last thought in. But I'm going to try to come back tomorrow night. We do it again. But the e-dollar. So the cashless push. So all these articles I've showed, the videos I showed, whatever, it's about sowing the seeds now to prepare the people for what they want. And what they want is to remove cash. Why? Because the cycle, the math no longer adds up. The numbers no longer can be maneuvered and faked the way they have. This 90-year period of a reboot is due. The last reboot was the Great Depression. What came out of that was the removal of gold. Here we have another situation is going to unfold, and the end of that will be the end of physical cash the way we've known it. And then what's going to be right there? The e-dollar, the e-krona, the e-euro. E-euro is being talked about, so the e-dollar is coming. But problem is the e-dollar, in my opinion, will not be controlled by the Federal Reserve. It will be somehow spun into a unified government type of body. And the reason I say that is because the Federal Reserve right now, they're going to completely destroy their ability to keep the public blind anymore, because everything that's labeled Federal Reserve note, they're going to find out, the public will find out that is their greatest liability. And they're no longer going to want a privatized company to issue the currency. And so it's going to be hard to spin out a central bank in this next couple of years after they hyperinflate through just, printing as much as they can and buying up every single thing they possibly can. And so keep in mind, the Federal Reserve now is the biggest landlord in the country with the mortgage-backed securities. Next, they're going to become the biggest owner of stocks. And so what will happen is the shareholders of the Federal Reserve happen to be the too big to fail banks. And then you got the people who own those. So you just trace back who owns the most shares and what. So the Federal Reserve is, the shareholders happen to be the too big to fail banks. Who are the shareholders of JP Morgan, all those people like that, all those oligarchy families and whatnot. So all that wealth will be transferred back into the hands of the original designers of this system. And then they're going to then get involved with the e-dollar and whatever else. On the side of that, we have the decentralized cryptocurrency stuff that's been spun off. Those are just, a game plan, a tease and a warm up for this electronic world we're entering into. And I'd imagine once all the e stuff is rolled out, they're going to deal with all that decentralized crypto stuff as well. So there's a window of time, I believe, to take advantage of all of this. But yet one is one of the things where the system is not designed for you to profit. So, I don't follow along or really go with the idea of you're going to get rich. Like, you're not going to get rich. The system's not designed for you to get rich. It's only those that are able and willing to take risk to do things that are risky and be able to either make it or not that will actually come out better in the end at the end of the day. So, and of course, as always, on the safe side of things, you can preserve stuff for just having tangible goods and services that people need. So, or items, that's what I'm referring to. Anyway, I'm ranting too much. But anyway, I'm about to dial back. That's all she wrote. I'm done for the night. Tomorrow, same time, same place. Tomorrow, tune back in at 11 a.m. We got the RTD News. Me and Mr. Had Dollar going to go at it again. It's going to be good. So make sure you guys tune in. If you've enjoyed this, don't be afraid to give a thumbs up to this video, because always, every little bit of support from the community helps when it comes to the algorithms and all that type of stuff. And other than that, if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe, and we'll be back for more. So other than that, that's all for tonight. Be blessed, be safe. Catch you on the flip side.